Please help me welcome director Nathan Silver. Jason Schwartzman. And I can't believe I get to say this. I'm so fucking stoked. The one, the only, the mighty Carol Kane. Congratulations.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, wow.
Of course.
you.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the very beginning, the genesis, the in the beginning moment. This really kind of starts with a documentary that you're making about your mother, right?
Everything starts with the mother, right?
Right.
So basically, I was shooting a documentary about my mom, and we followed her to her temple. And for one thing, I was kind of shocked that she was going to a temple in the first place because she grew up in this like socialist household. Her parents had met on at a socialist summer camp, which used to exist, and so I go to. She had joined this temple to kind of find some community. My father and she had just moved upstate New York from Massachusetts, so I understood that, and I figured it was just to meet people. And then I'm following her around, and we follow her into her B'nai mitzvah class. She's going to get her bat mitzvah at 68. And I'm like, what's going on, Mom? So, and she's here, actually. I don't know if she wants to come up and say hello.
Glad said it's
At least stand up.
So this is the lady. The reason we have
Have
this
a seat
movie.
here.
Oh, that's okay.
And so a few weeks later, I relayed this story to my friend Adam Kirsch, who had been a publicist on a bunch of my movies. We're at a party, and he's like, "That's a movie." I'm like, "That's not a movie, Adam. What are you talking about?" He's like, "There's a movie there. You do like a riff on Harold and Maude, where a late-in-life bat mitzvah student falls in love with her younger cantor or rabbi, and you have a movie." And I'm like, "Adam, that's the worst idea I've heard." And, you know, I love to call him like this wonderful pest. He's very good at it, being a publicist. And, you know, he was very persistent. And he kept asking me to make this thing. I'm like, I don't have an idea for this. It's going to be bad. So what ends up happening is COVID. COVID happens, and, you know, a lot of companies are have money for developing scripts. So he partners up with this company, Leyline, which are incredible. An incredible company that produced the movie. And he gets some development money for this script, and I still don't have an idea. And so I enlist my collaborator and good friend, C. Mason Wells, Chris Wells, who is a goy, for one thing.
Here, yeah.
And he hates Harold and Maude. For a second, I love Harold and Maude, but he hates it. And
He hates Harold and Maude?
He does not like it.
I take back my here.
He admires certain elements. He loves Ashby. It's more just, I think it's more the cloying aspects of the movie.
Okay, he's dead to me, but please go on.
So I figure we're going to make something out of this that's not going to be like just a tribute to that movie. It's going to kind of take it apart and figure out what we want to do. And that was, you know, so it starts with my mother and goes through COVID, and here we have this movie now, which I'm so damned proud of and so grateful for my incredible cast and crew.
Yeah, mutually grateful.
Now, you wrote this for Jason, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious. How was this pitched to you, and then what was your impression when you first read the script?
Well, I had just finished working. It's funny, how was it pitched to me? It's such a great question because it was pitched to me by a man who has broken English, who tries his best to speak English, but he's the most incredible French man I've ever met in my life. And he tried to sum it up for me and then gave up on that in the email. But basically, Damien Bonin, who's an actor that we've both worked with, he was in Nathan's film prior to this, and I don't need that thing. Come on, what am I going to do? Anyway, thank you so much, though. And we had just worked together on a movie called Asteroid City, and we had really hit it off. And when I say the thing about the English, that's the thing. It's like when you can laugh with someone, and when you connect with someone, regard, you know what I mean? There's a look in this man's eye that we connected and we became friends, and I respect this person deeply. And as with anyone that you respect, when they recommend something, I take that to heart. And he wrote me this email and said, I've just worked with this director, Nathan Silver. He would like to talk to you. He made a movie. He wants to make a movie with you that he had for you in mind about Cantor, and anyway, I'll let him explain it. But you will like each other, and you will get along, and I think that you will really have a fruitful relationship, and that meant a lot coming from him. So then, shortly after that, I did receive an email and a letter describing the story, and then the script, which they can explain later. But basically, it's written in more of a in a prose style than a traditional script. In that there's not scene numbers. The dialogue is not. It doesn't say like this person and then they said the thing, and it's not like a play it's written more like, he enters the room, puts down his coat and says, "Can I have a glass of water?" She says no and leaves, which is a really great sentence and story. And it was amazing because I had never read anything like that, and I loved I was totally engrossed in it. And really loved this story of this person who had suffered a loss and was kind of like stunned by it. And was kind of like, is he dead or is he not dead? That moment where it's like, is he going to breathe? You know what I mean? And someone who is there to help, usually there to help people and be in service of people who not sure if he wants to do that anymore. And that was the beginning of it. And then we really did hit it off, and it was so nice. So that's that story.
And a fine story it was, sir.
Okay.
At what point did Carol Kane's name get mentioned for Carla?
So it was written for Jason. Jason and I talked about it a lot, and he finally he agreed that he wanted to do it. I think yesterday I heard you describe it like going to get a shot that you need, and you need the shot, but you don't want to go to get it. And you're like, I don't want to put myself through this. I don't want to do this character.
That's how I felt.
But so it was a lot of discussion, and I really admire that. And in all of the people I collaborate with, questions, because that's what the movie's about too. It's questions upon questions, Judaism. But so I then ended up I then was dealing with my wedding. I got married, and you know who? Well, thank you. Dami and Benar officiated the wedding, playing a rabbi. So, and we all got COVID. And I was on my honeymoon with COVID. I'd lost my sense of smell and taste. And I was in a feverish sleep, whatever, waking, whatever. And Carol Kane popped into my head.
Not quite sure how I feel about that, but that's okay.
No, but it's like when Ben, when Jason sees her on the screen, it's like how could we not have thought of this beforehand? So I write to my producers, I write to Chris, and everyone's like, well, duh, of course it's Carol Kane. That's Carla. And the movie couldn't exist without her, of course. And I mean, she and Jason, they're the movie.
Thank you.
All right, now I want to hear this story from your side, Ms. Kane. What did you respond to when you read the script? What struck a chord? What made you think, I actually want to do this? I know you'd said publicly that you'd wanted to work with Jason before, and he was already involved with this.
I first found out about it during Nathan's dream. I got an offer to do this, and I was told that it would be co-starring with Jason, and I just went nuts because I have loved him so much for so long and would have done anything to work with him. And then I watched Nathan's movies, Cutting My Mother, and and then and saw how talented and unique a filmmaker he is. And then I got what Nathan calls the scriptment, which is not a script and it's not a treatment, and it's sort of a chapter book, but it's not a chapter book, and blah, blah, blah. And then I read the scene that Jason was talking about the water and everything. And then I thought, yeah, I'm going to take this leap. I was a little concerned because I'd never done a movie that didn't have a script before, but I felt that it was well worth the risk because these two people were so, special.
So let's talk about this lack of a script real quick.
Well, maybe we could invite C. Mason Wells up here.
No. After the Harold Munn comment? No.
No, come up.
so.
Chris, come up.
Where's
Take
Chris?
it back, Chris. Take back the Harold Munn comment.
Because who could speak to it better?
Okay, so as Chris is walking up, here's what I understand. You guys correct me if I get any of this wrong. So you've talked about the scriptment that you guys put together. What's up, Chris?
This is the horrible guy who doesn't like Harold and Maude,
Yeah.
but wrote this
Take a good
beautiful
look at
movie.
him. And then I was also given to understand that you guys would put off writing scenes, like actual dialogue for scenes, until like a couple of days before you had to shoot them, so that the actors wouldn't necessarily be memorizing lines. They would just be kind of coming across them and then having to sort of react and try and speak the speech as much as possible. Now, from the actor's point of view, I want to hear how this affected this performance, how this drove you crazy, whether this was actually a boon instead of a burden. How did this affect the film?
You want to go first? You want to answer first?
Hello. It was a challenge, but at first I was kind of shocked that we were never going to get a script because I sort of thought I was eventually going to get a script. But then that turned out not to be a true story. And, and then, but then we got on location and we all sat in the lobby of a hotel and talked for many hours and sort of felt ourselves to be a unit of some kind, I think, and agreed on certain things to jump off from, and then each day we would get some lines for the scene for the next day, and then we would try and shoot the scene starting with the written lines, and then Nathan would watch us do it and say, no, that's not it. That's not it at all. And then we would sort of, then we would just keep trying various attempts at it based around the lines and the meaning, the essence of each scene until he got what he wanted, and to his great credit, he didn't settle. He just kept going till it was there in his opinion and feelings, and right. So I'm going to take it away, Mr. Jason Schwartzman.
No, that's that. I mean, but I do want to also add to that. But because there wasn't a traditional script, I think one might think, well, that this was a very structured story and had so much there that meant so much to Carol and I that I think that this is like, for lack of a better metaphor, I think that like sometimes when we would get these said lines, sometimes they were new, but sometimes they were lines that had been part of a conversation maybe a long time ago, or maybe partly from a different scene or something. They had all been part of the discussion for a long time. And so, I think that like the bad kind of metaphor is when we would get to set, I feel like the rehearsal process in the beginning before we start shooting it would be to do the scene as Carol's saying and shoot it as scripted. But it was sort of like when things didn't work, it was kind of like it was more like rearranging furniture, but the furniture were like family heirlooms at that point. Do you know what I mean? So it's like everything meant so much. Nothing felt arbitrary or just like totally invented. Everything is connected to something that had been planted there a long time ago, and I think that just is a testament to their writing and filmmaking, that they would be able to have such ideas that would be able to really like keep sprouting wild ideas. So yeah, but that said, it was hard.
I mean, I think it's a credit to Nathan and to having actors you can really trust who are as good as you guys, that we know that we can write dialogue the morning of and give it to you live, and you can learn it so quickly and bring it to life in that way. Because what we would do is something you would say, Carol, 2 days prior, I'd put into the movie. I'd write it into a scene, a turn of phrase that you had, something you said. Because we had met Jason a bit before and done Zooms and talked with you about the character, but we met you on set live. And when I met you, I mean, I fell in love with you, as everyone does. And it's like, it's true. But it is a thing where it's like, after we met you, we were like, oh boy, are you ever Carla? And if we get 1/10 of who you are as a human being into this movie, we have accomplished something, you know? And it's
Well,
like,
see, now, I have never heard this before, and I'm just sort of, my breath is taken away.
no, but
Thank
it's really true. And I think that's a
He
testament.
likes to tell you last minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's the whole last minute thing. I forgot.
I need 200 people in front of me in order to make it count. But no, I mean, it is true, and that's a testament to Nathan's way of working. It's adaptive. Every day it's turning into something new, and the movie is alive and breathing and changing. And we both kind of agree, and I think all of us together on the movie, that makes for a movie that's more interesting and human, and it breathes in a way that other movies don't.
And I think you really do need a rapport. I mean, it's a really lovely ensemble you put together, but so much of the film depends on the rapport between these two characters and these two actors. And so when you really see something get like a real connection happening on screen, like it makes all the difference.
Well, I remember the first time I met Carol was on a Zoom, like, and with Jason, and as soon as their faces popped up on the screen, I was like, "There's a movie." No matter, it's for me to fuck up.
Since you're bringing up the Zooms, when you guys premiered this at Sundance, there was a really interesting question that got asked at the post-screening Q&A, where somebody said, okay, so in terms of the relationship between Cantor, Ben, and Carla, what was your intent? Which is a weird way of phrasing that question until you start to think about it, and you guys answered it really wonderfully by saying, yeah, we actually talked about this a lot. We had Zooms together, and then we brought the actors in for Zooms, and this was something that was like a very ongoing, very alive discussion. What sort of discussions were you having about this? How did that end up affecting the final product of what we see on screen?
Well, it's about the character. It all comes down to the characters. I think, Chris and I, when we're writing, it's always character first. And so we're thinking about the people who are going to play these people. We want humans on screen. So how are they going to react? They're confused themselves. They don't know what they're feeling either. When Jason makes that profession, it's like it's happening in that moment because he doesn't know how he feels, but he knows that he feels so much. There's a stronger love for Carla than anyone else he knows at that very moment, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter if there might be actual romance, there might be whatever. There's an actual but what holds the movie up is that they have a true love, which is a connection. They find each other and they connect. They needed each other at this certain moment. And I don't know what's going to happen after. I don't want to know because I want to hope that that something wonderful continues, whatever that may be.
I want to make sure that, I know there's a lot of questions for Nate's mom here, so I want to make sure everybody gets the chance to ask her stuff. But before I turn this over to the audience, we have to talk about the Shabbat dinner scene.
Yes.
Because it's chaotic, it's cringy, it's funny, it actually ends up being very moving. There's a lot of stuff that you've got to kind of corral into this one thing. how did talk a little bit about filming this? I want to hear it from the actor's perspective and from your perspective.
Who do you want to start with?
Let's go with you first.
Okay. Well, we shot it over the course of 2 nights with 2 cameras, and I believe Hunter's here, who was the second camera, and I mean, like, it was heaven sent that we had him. Like, he and Sean, you can only call it a dance, however cliche that is. The way they move around the table it's grand. You know, they really know how to react to the actors, the great reactors they are. And like, I think that like, so we came in, we had written one version of the scene that all the actors had read. And then certain people had read the second version that we had delivered maybe the day before. But the problem was we were also shooting. So people did not necessarily have time to read the second version. So we then read that second version like at a table read, the only table read we did before we started shooting, because we knew it was such a massive, undertaking. And we started just like, everyone had different points of view as to what their character would do in this instant, in this moment, like what would happen. And they were arguing for different versions of the scene. So I was like, we're going to shoot both versions that we wrote, and then we're going to do some improvised versions. And so we shot the 2 versions, and then Jason is the one who suggested the telephone game, and we shot it, and I was like, oh, that's incredible. I mean, that is exactly what he would do. He teaches kids. He also is childlike himself, the character. Like, this is kind of the perfect way to announce what he wants. He can't speak, right? He's not going to just say it outright. He needs to build up to it. And then, we didn't know what was going to happen with all these different versions. Everyone said that John McGarry, our brilliant editor, had his work cut out for him with this. And they were like, have you gotten to the Shabbat scene yet? Have you seen the footage? He's like, I'm cutting the movie, like, in order, chronologically, give me time. And so he gets to this scene, and he's like, it can't be as bad as everyone's saying it is. And he looks at the footage, and he's like, okay, this is bad.
It was like 25 minutes originally, right?
Yes, the initial cut of it was 25 minutes, and it was an incredible 25 minutes, because what John stumbled on was using all 3 versions of the scene and making a 3-act structure out of that. And like, I have nightmares about the sound time, like the timeline of the sound, like all the different layers of voices of audio on there. It's a nightmare, because he just like was dealing with so many different people talking over each other, and he crafted something that like I never thought, like, I was just so damn proud of him, of the actors, of everyone involved. We like everyone brought themselves to this scene, and like reworked it on set. It was like a real feat, and we somehow came out on the other end. And I'm like, it's the thing I'm most proud of in all my filmography, if you can call it that, even though
You can call it that.
I don't know.
And from the actor's perspective, how was it for you guys?
Well, just everything Nathan said, I couldn't have, yes. And I think just in addition to it, one thing I'll say that was very, very helpful to, for me at least, and I don't want to speak for you, but in terms of just the way we did it was Nathan hearing all of us talking about these various reasons why, we more attached to this idea or this, and everyone's kind of protecting their little character or whatever that they've been building. And I think the way, by shooting both versions, the way he shot both versions was, we're going to have the 2 cameras, and we are just going to have dinner, and everyone's going to talk, and we're going to film it. So there was something, in other words, it wasn't like when it was just, let's say, Carol and I on the camera, it wasn't like, okay, everyone else be quiet at the other end of the table so that they can have their, like, aside, which I think probably would have been so embarrassing. Like, to have everyone, like, the characters hear you, because they're not really supposed. I had never worked with a director who had made it where truly the dinner scene is like, they're talking over there and we're talking over here. I don't know what they're really talking about. You hear pieces of a conversation, and it's just all these little conversations that add up to this chatter, which is, that scene. And it was when I saw the movie, I was so happy to see it just because I got to like see Dolly and what they're all saying down there is so interesting, and because we're all doing our own things. But that was the way it was set up, was just have dinner and get through this, and we're going to film it, but don't hold back, and we're not going to break it down. We're going to just let it be a dinner, and we had dinner for 2 nights.
You want to add anything to that?
No, it was a tremendous amount of freedom and a tremendous challenge, because we were all sort of discombobulated and fighting for our own personal stories or what we thought it should be, and blah, blah, blah. And a group of strong personalities, I think, and then this telephone idea was so revealing and brilliant, and just the bravery of Nathan's choice to let it just go like it went, and just have faith that it would be of a whole eventually, and just so much freedom was afforded to us throughout the movie, and largely due to Nathan, but also to our DP, Sean Price Williams, who just somehow managed to be in the right place at the right time, even though every time was different. And, that's their collaboration. And anyway, it just was a wonderful experience.
I think we've got time for a couple of quick questions. Right in front, because we don't have a microphone. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so a component of the film that I thought was particularly striking was the remnants of Jason's character, how they come to light and how they really complete the picture. And they're often presented in these very surrealistic ways. And so you see, like how his wife appears on the doorstep of like their old house, and also the trip scene, which is like pretty iconic within the movie. You see him, his younger self reflected, and that adds a lot to the character, really completes the character. And I was just wondering what the thought process behind bringing those kinds of scenes in.
Just in case anybody didn't hear this, what was the thought process about bringing some of those flashback and the more surreal vignettes?
I think it's about basically the movie's open to anything at any moment, and keeping that spontaneity. It can go, like, any scene can go anywhere, whether it's behavior-wise. It's all within character, keeping in character, but that, like, we allowed ourselves like the freedom to just have fun and make something playful within, because it's a sad story. There's a lot of sadness and tragedy around these characters, so how to inject it with life, with the chaos of life, with joy, with faith in the absurd, that there's hope in the hopeless time. How do you do that? You add life to it,
What did you call it, Chris? A romantic dramedy? Such a good. I wish I'd thought of that.
Brilliant.
Right there in the corner.
The burger eating scenes were visually delightful. I'm just wondering, was this something that you had to do multiple times? How did that work out?
Jason can speak his
The
stomach
burger
is-
scenes were particularly visually delightful. I'll make sure everybody caught that. How many times did you have to do that scene?
We did a lot of takes, and I'm also vegan, so I had like special vegan burgers made that we got, and I ate. I do think that there's meant to be a limit to like how much you're supposed to, and it was weird because when we stopped eating, we took a break. Maybe we took a break for lunch in the middle of the thing.
I think you're right.
And I was
That's
like,
disgusting.
that's confusing. That's very confusing. And, but it was great. And they were so delicious.
They were great.
And, and I'm glad you liked it, because sometimes it's hard to watch something like that. And, but I
You
thought
just
that
had to
scene
go
was
for
so great. I was always looking forward to that scene because, Nathan, we had like 3 things that were like always there from the beginning. One is like this character talks slowly. The scenes are slow. And I've never worked with a director who said like slower. Every take, like just slower, slower, slower. And he walks slow and everything, so that and he doesn't smile. And the idea was that when he eats that burger, that's like the first time you see him like enjoying something, and it tastes so good. You know what I mean? And I really was always that was there early on. I always loved that scene just for what it meant to the character, and what it's something that it's a real gift that her character, presents as because she's a teacher as well, and yeah.
All right, I think we got time for one more. Go ahead. Yep. Uh-huh.
All right, so a really interesting choice I felt was to have a predominantly Hebrew language score, except for I think the one credit song was in English. And I was curious why you decided to go with a mostly Hebrew score when Carol Kane's character has been really much an identity for there's no much of an identity until midway through the film. And was that just more of a desire to create a truly Jewish story sonically, or was there any other reason behind that choice?
A mostly, how did you say it? Hebrew?
Hebrew language school.
A Hebrew language score. The decision to do that, was it just because you wanted to put that in for that music? Were you trying to inflect the story with that much more Jewishness?
Well, we didn't want klezmer music throughout. That was like a no-no. We wanted it to be like a needle drop, to have a soundtrack, Harold and Maude, Fat City. I guess Fat City is only one song, but that kind of The Graduate. And we thought it was going to be one artist, and then that didn't quite work out. So I was, my editor and I, John and I, were going back and forth, and his friend had all these prog albums, and we started dropping a bunch of the songs into the timeline, and they just fit so beautifully, and we're like, maybe Jason's character, maybe Ben listened to these as a kid. We started thinking about who his father was, and maybe his father's character, who's not even in the movie, mentioned once, maybe this is what the father played for him. So it's it's a callback to his childhood, sometime when he was happy, and that's more or less what led us to that. And then the final song is a beautiful original composition by Joanna Sternberg, who they're incredible. And their great uncle, I believe, was a famed cantor. And so they come from a lineage of, Jewish singers. And to bring it into the modern day in some way with the closing credits.
Well, and the film's dedicated to a Jewish singer as well.
Yes. David Berman from Silver Jews and Purple Mountains. And Jason and I and Chris, we discussed David Berman at length for Ben's character, the depressed Jew who's lost, this idea of what if David Berman were a cantor in a small town in upstate New York? What would that look like? And that was Ben.
I mean, that was the beginning. That was maybe the first thing you said to me. I think that it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for bringing the movie here. Thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you.
out.
Thank you
for those good questions.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Wait, do you want to say anything?
The
I
mother of
love-
all mothers.
I love the movie. I love Adam Kirsch. I love all these people. I love Dolly DeLeon, Carolyn Aarons. It was the most inspiring, wonderful set to ever be on. And thank God I had a little role. I didn't have all the pressure, and it wasn't in my house. And I'm very proud. And I'm very proud of my son and his wife, the beautiful Nicole Fuentes, who was the wardrobe assistant and who plays me in Cutting My Mother on YouTube. She does a dance where she's yelled at by Nathan's other mother, Diane Lanier, if she wants to come up. She, I think, is the inspiration for the two moms, because she and I love Nathan equally. And
She plays the rabbi's wife.
yeah. And Robert Smigel, what a great guy. What a great cast. What beautiful people. I'm so
Thank you.
happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank
Here's
you.
Diane.